Welcome to another episode of Tea Time at Physics, and today our guest is Alexis Gates, and she's a co-owner of Burn Bootcamp, and right now you guys have two locations, right?
We do. So we have one that we recently located to Needham, and then our second location is Metro West, which is in Framingham.
Perfect. Now, for those who don't know, what is Burn Bootcamp?
So Burn Bootcamp is a bootcamp style gym. We have 45-minute camps that run throughout the day. And in that group setting, we go through several different protocols, types of exercise, where anything from strength training to cardio, to kind of more balance work, athletic conditioning, things like that. So we take you through a full workout within that 45 minutes. And the big thing is meeting people where they're at. So modifying for all levels, all skill types, all abilities, with every person with the goal of leaving just feeling better than they did when they walked through the door.
I love it. Now, Alexis, I kind of knew you because your face looked familiar to me, and I saw you on Facebook, and I saw that we went to the same high school together.
Yep.
So I'm sure we had the similar teachers at some point.
Yeah.
So walk me through like life. Like you went to Boston Line Academy.
Yep.
You graduated. You know, I think you got a major in exercise science, kinesiology, right?
Yeah. So I was very lucky being in Boston public school system. They had a program called Boston Scholars that connected with Boston University. So I was able to get a full scholarship to BU. I went there for my undergrad for athletic training. That was really where I thought my life was going, was the sports medicine base. That was kind of what I had always thought about growing up, the kind of the space I saw myself in. So I got certified as an athletic trainer, board licensed, all of that great stuff. BU actually hired me back as a grad assistant, and I got my master's in anatomy and physiology. And then I started working in the field, both with, kind of anecdotally in different like sports camps and things like that, but more so with colleges and university teams, being their primary athletic trainer. And I unfortunately quickly learned that that wasn't my passion, that it was a space that I really enjoyed, and it lit up some parts of my brain, but not others. So that was kind of how I started exercising more regularly, because it made me feel really good. And then I ended up becoming a certified personal trainer, teaching just like spin classes and strength classes and things like that. And I kind of realized like how passionate I was about that I wanted to be doing that more and more and more.
Now, what is, for those who don't know the difference, because we know the difference between athletic training and personal training. For those who don't know, like what is that difference, and what didn't you like about the athletic training world that make you want to make the switch?
So the athletic trainer is typically who you will associate with the medical professional associated with a sports team, or athletes or things like that. So definitely more in that sports medicine based realm. So if you're ever watching a sporting event and someone gets injured on the field, the person running out to assist them and be kind of that first line of defense is typically a certified athletic trainer. The two often would get crossed over. So in the athletic training world, it was always, we're not trainers, we're athletic trainers, to kind of specify that difference. But there is a ton of crossover between them. Where in the personal training space, there's a ton of different ways you can take it, but all revolves more around exercise. Whether it's to improve health or performance, or kind of where that falls, it depends on where you specialize. But in exercise base versus a more of that medical science base on the athletic training side.
Yeah, so what about athletic training that made you, go into it and decided that you want to pivot to a different direction? So
I was always an athlete growing up, and, being a part of the sports world was a space where I always saw myself. My mom loves telling the story where, I was an athlete and I would always do whatever, like strength and conditioning camps there were, things like that, to try to get better in the off season. And especially at a young age, very often I was the only girl. And I would always say like, I'm going to create a space when I'm older where, girls are, just as involved as boys, and, we can get stronger just like them and things like that. And I kind of lost that path at some point, and kind of, because I think in school, like science was always my strongest subject, and I kind of lean more into the medical field side of it. But it's just funny how life kind of comes back around. And, with Burn, it is a space where everybody's an athlete when they walk through the door, regardless of where you're starting. And, getting a little bit better, 1% better every day, not necessarily for a team or for a game, but for life. life, right? And that's kind of how I think that made me more excited. I felt like I was having truly a stronger impact on people's everyday lives in the exercise space versus the athletic training field, where there's so many other factors that go, that winning a game is the end goal, right? Where when you're working either one-on-one or in a group with someone, the goal is to get better. And that was just a marker that I think my personality really just kind of targeted towards.
Right. Now, of course, there's a big difference between, being a trainer and being a business owner.
Yep.
So talk to me about that transition where
Sure.
you're training, you're seeing your clients, and then into like, hey, let's own a burn boot camp and grow this thing.
For sure. So I had been I had left athletic training and done personal training full time at a local gym in South Boston. And I was taking personal training clients, I was doing classes and things like that. And I had liked it, but it wasn't, like I wanted to go all in on something. And that was where the co-owner of Burn Boot Camp Newton at the time, now it's Burn Boot Camp Needham, had found me and said, hey, I'm opening this gym. I've heard about you. I have a friend who's your training client. Like, do you want to come check it out? So I was like, sure. It was at a time in my life where I was open to a lot of different opportunities. And the issue was there was no burns open in Massachusetts. It's a North Carolina-based company, and we're much more prominent in the South before. They kind of came and spread everywhere. So, once I believed in the mission, I understood, but I hadn't visually really seen it. So, one of the things that they would do back then when there was not a lot of burn boot camps nationwide was have what they call a discovery day, where if you were potentially a lead trainer, you would go to North Carolina to their headquarters location and just see what a camp is like. And I'll never forget like walking through those doors and just being like, this is where I'm meant to be, right? Seeing not only women work harder than I've ever seen before, lifting heavier weights, but like the community was what drew me in. There was, a 65-year-old woman next to a former college athlete, and they're high-fiving each other and just so genuinely happy for each other to be working out in the next space. So people who necessarily wouldn't cross paths maybe in other aspects of their lives, being in this one space, really supporting and encouraging each other, I was like, wow, I want more of that. So once we had opened the Newton location, I was the lead trainer, and the model back then was the lead trainer was really the heart and soul of the business, where you were there every day. It was 35 to 40 camps a week. I was like 30, no kids, so it was fine. I was like very happy to be there. I loved it. I didn't care how many times I lost my voice. I still wanted to be in the gym every single day. And then I would say within the first 2 months, I had approached Christine, the co-owner, and saying like, I know I want more of this. Is this something you would be open to doing with me? And that was when we started the process of opening the second gym. We took a while to get there with finding locations and kind of all the details that go into it. So then in November of 2020, which is a very hard time to open a gym, we opened our Metro West location, but I still stayed on as the lead trainer in our Newton location. And it was a while before we found our footing of where I really learned that it was better for me to take a step away from that lead trainer role to help lift up other people in order to help the business grow and truly be a little bit more impactful.
And what was the transition like for you? Was it a tough transition to step out of that?
Yeah, and it was slow. There was no like, oh, okay, I'm done. It's such a personal business that you have to find the right people, not only to be on your team, but especially if you're picking who's going to lead your team. And then how do you set your standards? So this was where I think the first things kind of shifted for me of not only can I go in and train a great camp is one thing, can I teach someone to do that? And then how do we replicate it so that they can teach other people to do that with objective measures and things like that beyond just it felt great or I thought it was a good camp. How do we really set that standard for ourselves? So that was where we really started kind of our policies and procedures base. And at the same time, the other owner, Christine, who's very much, more on like the back end business of things. Like she has the finance brain. I always say she's back office, I'm front office. But there was stuff that it no longer made sense for her to be doing either, right? So it's, what things do we delegate? What things do we, outsource? And what things do we keep on our plate? And how do we balance that with the things that, got us into the business in the first place?
Yeah, so let's talk about, you mentioned like how do we offload, your work into another head trainer who's going to provide a stellar experience for the people coming in. So what are some things you look for that would make you say, hey, this person did a great job leading this class, and this is the person I trust to lead the rest of this company?
Yeah, for sure. So it definitely takes a long time. It's not going to come out in like one conversation. But one of the big things we look for with somebody, whether it's just a support trainer or a lead trainer, is like command of the floor, right? Like, are you able to step onto that floating floor and immediately get everybody's attention and excited and be happy about being there?
You gotta have a presence.
Exactly, a mic presence. So we always do like a mini mic test whenever we're testing out trainers, just to see. There's things you can teach and there's things that you can't teach. And having a personality that people are drawn to, that people are comfortable with is so very important, along with the wealth of knowledge that you need to be able to modify exercises, to know what's appropriate for separate members, to mod people up, to make things more challenging, to mod them down, to make it more accessible. So besides just that back end of knowledge, having the command, and then like the passion for wanting to help other people, right? Like you can find out pretty quickly when people are in it for the right reasons or not. And
what are some of the clues that you find?
It typically comes out in like our interview process of like questions that get asked. Of like, I'll ask people to like, reference a time when like you had a really great training experience, and like what they talk about kind of leads to that. Like if it's someone where they really truly impacted someone's life, or is it like, oh no, I was able to get 100 people to buy this online program. Like that is very different. And I'm not saying that's not impactful, but for our specific space, being able to connect with someone one-on-one that you might not have very much in common with, but we've built rapport and you trust me. Our time is our most valuable resource. So for somebody to choose to spend their time, their energy, their money with us in our gym space, we have to be so incredibly respectful of that and meet them where they're at, of whatever, and understand their why they walk through the door and what their goals are. So being able to have a conversation with multiple people, like whenever we hire, it's the whole team's involved. Not only just on the leadership side, but meeting the other trainers, meeting our burn ambassadors, who are our front desk staff, our child watch staff, things like that. Like, are you able to connect with people across the spectrum of life? Because if you can't, then there's going to be a huge subset of people who aren't able to build that connection with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in the hiring phase right now, and these things are just on top of my mind. And it's extremely hard to find the right person for the job, because you're looking for, personality is number one, and communication skills. Can they communicate in a way that is impactful, right? Two trainers, two therapists can say the same exact thing, but one is going to have a much higher impact than the other, depending on how they use their voice in that way. And I think even more important for the instructors, because they're on a mic, and you guys have a ton of people in the class who's listening intently to these instructions, and we need to get the stuff done, but also find a way to build a connection with the class. And
how can I sprinkle my personality in there? Like, we have checklists of things that need to be done over the course of a camp, but how do you make that your own, so that somebody wants to come keeping back? And then how do you teach somebody else how to do that is also really, really important to us.
Yeah, those are the challenges of being a business owner, right?
And so now we've kind of adopted this philosophy, and it took us a long time to get there, because someone can be a great trainer. They could be a great one-on-one trainer. They could be a great small group trainer. It might not be the fit for them for burn. Like, we understand that we're a specific space, and that someone who's wonderful at leading camps might not necessarily be the right fit for us in a certain space or setting or what we're looking for. So whenever we do what we call a mic test, we have a trainer come in, they'll do a mini mock camp. So it's like 10 minutes where they're just basically showing us basic exercises for a warm up, a workout, and a finisher, so we can see how comfortable they are on the mic, cueing the exercises, and then we go around in a circle afterwards, and you just say it's a yes or no. And if it's not a hell yes, it's a no, right? Because if you're already having reservations, and there's lots of things that you can teach people, but when you get someone's energy, when if they have a willingness to learn, if they want to be a part of a community, that all comes off pretty quickly.
Absolutely. And something you mentioned earlier is that you guys care about objective measures.
Yeah.
So for our audience who don't understand, what do you mean by objective measures?
So on the back end, in the beginning, you have to be a certified personal trainer. That is a unique requirement to Burn Bootcamp. So
I thought you meant objective measures for like the participants coming in.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So for anybody coming in, you have to be a certified personal trainer. So there's just like that, those things that have to be done. That's just a minimum requirement, right?
But not for like members.
Oh no,
example.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I'm talking about.
No, members can come in any walk of life, and we accept them with open arms. And I know a lot of gyms say that, but I have countless people that I can look back to who, maybe they had just spent the last 10 years of their life having kids, and they hadn't taken any time for themselves, and they hadn't exercised. They're now coming in and building a consistent exercise routine. People who have, chronic illnesses that we need to be mindful of. People who, aren't comfortable with exercise, or have never exercised before, or have injuries that we need to create modifications for. Everybody is welcome. And then on the other side, people who really want a challenge. If they're, want a gym space that can show them the best version of themselves, we have lots of opportunity for that too.
Now, of course, as a PT practice, we have a lot of clients who wants to work out, but they're also dealing with like some aches and pains right there. And, we take care of a lot of that in-house. But they also want to have a community of other people surrounding them that motivate them to work out, because they're only seeing us once a week.
Right.
So we want them to be able to do some exercise that's safe to other days of the week.
Yeah.
So how's Burn different from other businesses that's doing group classes in terms of how you're keeping your clients safe during their exercises?
I think it starts from the day that you walk through the door, right? So the first day you walk through the door, you're greeted with a happy face, where we just try to bring, it's very stressful to walk through a gym the very first time, when you don't know any situation, when you don't know what to expect, when you've never been there before. And to have someone who just says like, hey, we're happy you're here. Like, tell me about yourself. That's whether it's the trainer or Burn ambassador, that first interaction starts to build our trust, right? Of like, okay, tell me a little bit about your why. What made you walk through the door? And if they do have specific injuries, that's a question that we ask right off the bat, of what we need to be mindful of. And then we always, the way Burn is a little bit different is like when we're programming workouts, when we're processing kind of like what we're putting in the gym and where, we're always being mindful of how do I make this modifiable. So how can I, if there's a plyometric, if there's, a resistance band or something that we're using, how can we change this to make that more, acceptable for somebody who's not at a certain activity level yet? And then how do we make it harder for somebody who is? Or, in our trainer meetings each week, when we're programming out what those workouts are going to look like, we have those conversations. Hey, if somebody's not able to do a lunge, what do we want to put here instead? What muscles are we looking to activate?
You want to plan B's, plan C's,
exactly.
and D's. Yep.
We're predominantly female, so we have a pregnancy sheet listed out there of exercises that are pregnancy sheet for each specific workout itself. And then I would say the true difference comes from something that we offer called focus meetings. So it's an opportunity to sit down. They're free, whether it's a trial or a membership, where a member or a potential member can come in and sit down and talk one-on-one with the trainer. 15 minutes where it's just about you, your goals, and a plan for how we're going to get there. So it helps us get to know you better. And then this is something that we ask all of our members to do once a month-ish, so that we can check in on how things are going. This isn't a set it and forget it business. It's the business of people. And how, if I'm helping you achieve your goals, one, I can't do that if I don't know what those are. And then two, if we're continuously checking in on where those benchmarks are and we're building trust, you're going to keep coming back. And when you keep coming back, sure, it's great for the business, but it's better for people, right? And then you're going to tell your friend how you achieved these things, and they're going to want to come in. And that's really our business model of referral. And it's not referral by offering, crazy incentives and things like that. I've had such a great experience that when I'm at my kids' baseball game, I love talking about Burn Boot Camp because it makes me feel so good. And hopefully that inspires somebody else to come.
Yeah, and I think just having a community around you doing the same thing, holding you accountable, that's big because consistency is what people need.
Yeah.
It's not like going crazy for like one day and then forgetting about it for 2 weeks and coming back. But if you can put in enough for 2-3 times a week and just get it done and you're safe and you feel good afterwards, I think that's worth so much more than you can't really put a price tag on that.
Exactly. And it's funny, like the same subset of people, like especially in the early morning, where people might only have the opportunity to exercise at 5:15 or 6:30 in the morning, and we see those same people day over day, week over week, month over month. And when someone's struggling with consistency, I'll find someone in one of those camps and say, this is your buddy. You tell them you're going to be here tomorrow. Because even just physically saying it out loud, committing to somebody else, makes you exponentially more likely to actually show up. And getting started is the hardest part. But once you have that momentum and you've almost built confidence in yourself, okay, I can do this. I can make this work with my schedule. I can modify and still see success. That's when it's a lot easier to stay rolling on a path versus getting started in the first place.
Right, and it sounds like when they take those focus meetings, they can really get more out of Burn Boot Camp because now the trainer, the trainer is like, hey, I know you're dealing with this ongoing back things that, you're working with physics, you guys are working on these things. So when we do this exercise, instead of doing it this way, you would do it this way instead. That's going to be a little bit easier on your body.
Exactly. And we're able to not only do maybe some objective measures of things that people want to track, like, body dynamics and things like that, but non-scale victories. Hey, I remember you were saying that you had a hard time walking up the stairs. How do you feel now? Like things that maybe people might not think about each day, but like, oh yeah, that used to be really hard for me and now I can do that. Or I can run around with my grandkids, or, I can lift my groceries from my car. Things like that like are never going to be a number on a scale, but greatly affects your everyday life.
That's your quality of life. It's huge. Now I got to ask this because there's a lot of group fitness businesses that's been blowing up, right? Orange Theory, Berries, there's big popular ones.
Yeah.
Now Burn Boot Camp is definitely coming up in the conversation a lot more.
Yeah.
Now, based on, I'm sure you have done research on other ones, like what makes you lean more toward Burn versus like, one of the big guys out there, like, F45, Orange Theory, like what would differentiate you guys from everybody else?
So I'm going to give you like two separate answers. One, it's community. It's just, and it's not only the community of like, you show up and people are just happy that you're there and we're all there and we're supporting each other. And not in like, and that's 100% true. Like there is that, it's just people are very excited to be doing this together, to be in this space exercising together. But not only that, but like even in my own experience, Burn has adapted with me throughout my life. So it's not like I have to be this in shape to start, or, I can't, this doesn't fit my schedule or whatever it may be. When I started Burn, I was, like I said, I didn't have any children. Burn has taken me through 2 pregnancies, 2 postpartums, a worldwide pandemic and all of these other things where like there were so many other variable factors and this was constant. And it was no matter how I was showing up that day. My workouts were a lot easier when I didn't have 2 kids to take care of and, prior to having 2 babies and things like that. But knowing that I can still show up for myself and I have a community that's there to support me in every aspect of my life, is huge. And like not only in the gym but outside of the gym. Like we have a book club, we have volunteering events that we do, we have member events and things like that. We donate to Project Just Because every year. We do a giving tree, and we're going to go to Crayons to Cradles next month to do a volunteering event. So it's a way, like finding friends when you're an adult is hard, right? So to be able to find a community of people who want to support you and do different things together outside of the gym keeps that stickiness, right? Like that's like Burn's the anchor, but it branches out to all these other different things. Right. And then just physically, the workouts are just like, I know I'm biased, but like just the best workouts on the planet. So, we have, every week has a protocol of what each day is. So today, for example, was back and glutes. So no matter what camp time you come to, it would be that back and glutes workout. There's so many different ways we can change what the exercises are or how we're making them more challenging or modifiable within the workout itself. But our exercises are different every time. Our programming itself is different, so it's not like you're always just doing a circuit. Because I do think that's intimidating too, when you walk into a group exercise class and it's like, oh, well, that's that person's spot, and they use those weights and that mat, and I don't want to step on that person's treadmill, where nobody knows what they're doing when they come in, right?
There
It's
is
like,
a
get
piece
on
of
the
that
floor.
that's not talked
We
about.
work out together. We'll show you, like, it's a surprise to everybody when they walk in. And we do have fundamental foundational movements that we repeat to really see that load, so that, you know, you are able to build up into a lunge, or, you know, those human movement patterns that are vital for quality of life. But the way that we can switch them out, it's a partner workout, it's an AMRAP, it's a circuit style, it's a stack and unstack, things like that. It keeps those things fun, whether it's your first day or your 1000th day. So
right, it keeps it interesting, and you guys still abide by those foundational elements of what is actually required for someone to build strength and fitness over time.
That progressive overload is still able to happen, which I think is one of the biggest critiques of group fitness, right? That, like, you're never going to get stronger if you're going to group exercise classes. Well, you haven't been coming to Burn, because we have like variations of the same exercises that we can progressively overload. Again, your trainer that sees you day over day, week over week, month over month, knows what you're capable of. So if you're continuously grabbing weights, hey, it's time to bump those up. You know, like, once we've made sure form is good, or different ways, isometric holds, things like that, to make things more challenging for you, so that you build confidence in that strength as well.
And for those who don't understand, a progressive overload pretty much means as you progress in your exercise program, your exercises should feel harder. The weights you use should be higher, or the amount of reps that you do might be longer. And that is the only way that your body would adapt into having better fitness, whether that's strength, endurance, or what have you. And that is my criticism of a lot of group fitness, is that you're going in there, but you're not really seeing yourself making those improvements over time.
You grab the same weights, you grab the same resistance, you grab the same, and that's, I think, where our one-on-one training within a group setting really shines, right? We have a transformation wall in each of our gyms, where when you first open, it's stories from other people, you know, other gyms, other burns, whatever it may be. And when all of those switched over to our own people, like, that was a big moment for me. Like, these people changed their lives, right? And like, they did it. We just gave them the space and the outlet to give them the support that they needed. But it's trust in us. And if you're, you know, doing the same thing over and over, one, exercising is hard enough. So anybody who moves their body in any way, I'm proud of you. But finding ways to continuously challenge yourself, so that your body changes, your mindset changes, your quality of life changes, that's huge.
And one thing I find interesting about the Burn model that I'm not seeing in other group fitness classes is that you guys have some kind of personalization embedded inside that model, versus I guess a lot of the companies, they come out and it's very much like just hard rules, like this is what we do every single time, there's no changes, versus you guys can sprinkle some extra things on there. You guys can do things like a book club and things like that. That's part of the business model, which I thought, you know, very interesting. And I gotta think it must be a harder model because of the extra flexibility that comes with it.
For sure. And it's one of those, like, if you're looking to own a business that's a set it and forget it, this isn't for you. It's too personal, you know. And if you really want to change people's lives, and if that's your why, then you have to be flexible in that way of, like, where you're putting your time and your effort. If, you know, you're just looking at numbers and not seeing the actual people that are walking through the door, it just makes things a lot more challenging to remember why you're doing it in the first place. So it definitely has its upsides, it definitely has its downsides, but I think the right people fit that model, and then that's why, you know, certain Burn locations are very successful, is because they found that balance of being in your business and on your business, but still, you know, keeping the business model in mind, but never losing that personal touch.
Now, as a business owner to another business owner, what is the hardest part about owning your own business?
You're just always on. And, like, I would say the hardest part for me is, like, I always want to show up, not only for my members, but my employees. And I want them to always feel supported, to have the resources that they need. So, you know, if a 5:15 camp, if the trainer that night has a question, like, I want to be there to answer it, right? But that means, maybe checking my phone more than I should, and, making it really hard to turn work off when I'm there to work out myself is a hard one as well. But it just kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's hard to turn everything off. And I have an app on my phone that literally shuts off my work apps.
Yeah.
It's like, are you using this to shut off your social media? No, I'm using it to shut off
Shut my work to not
stuff.
look at Outlook. Yeah.
Like, I'm fine on Instagram and TikTok. Like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's the other stuff. It's the
the other
emails
stuff.
and everything else. And it's just always nonstop. Now, of course, operating a business. How long you been operating Burn for now?
So I started with Burn about 8 years ago, and then have been an owner we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary in Metro West. And then after we opened Metro West, about a year and a half later was when I officially had bought in as a 50% owner of the Newton, now Needham location. So,
What do you see this going? Do you want to go into different neighborhoods?
I would love to. So it takes so much to truly put everything you have into starting up a burn. I would love to be in a space where I can help other people open burns, right? So if someone is passionate about opening a burn, if they remember themselves, or even if they're not, and they just find this as a space where they think they would be really successful, or enjoy not only their quality of life but their job and all of that, I would love to have my finger on that, but I don't think I can be as all in as I am with my other locations right now. So at least not with 2 young kids, maybe in the future.
Absolutely. Now I love that the Needham location is quite literally maybe 5 minutes away from where we are, half a mile away from where we are. So I think a lot of our clients can very much benefit from taking on some Burn Bootcamp classes as they're working through some issues, because there's people that's like 80% through. And when they're at that stage, they're not in a lot of pain, but they have a little thing here that we should look out for. And I feel like you guys have enough personalization to take care of that, versus I'm not as comfortable sending them to a place where it's like, you do this or you don't.
Right, where there isn't that flexibility to meet people where they're at.
Exactly. Now, if people want to learn more about Burn and take a class, like how can they learn more?
So lots of different ways to find us. First one would just be going to burnbootcamp.com. If you search under the locations, put in your area code, it will show you the closest burn closest to you. We always have a free offer. Try us out for free. Come in for a camp. See, we hope that you love us. If you don't, that's okay too, but at least walk through the door and try us out and see what we're all about. You can also find us on socials, both Instagram and Facebook, at Burn Bootcamp Needham and Burn Bootcamp Metro West.
There you have it. Well, thank you so much.
Of course.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.